Hello YouTube! Today a bit of a short video that I decided to make after getting several questions on stream. Did the Old Merry Dominion and the Thalmor truly win the Great War? I noticed that there are some misconceptions about the topic, so allow me to clear them up. Also, before you start watching, I highly recommend that you have some prior knowledge about how the Great War went down, so you can watch my video on the Great War via the link in the description. It will give you the necessary knowledge on the war. So, with all of us now working with the same information, let's begin. So the general consensus is that the Great War, after the Old Merry Dominion's defeat at the Battle of the Red Ring, was basically a stalemate in terms of military capabilities, but at the same time it was a strategic and diplomatic victory for the Old Merry Dominion, as with the signing of the White Gold Concordat the Empire was practically forced to revoke Hammerfell as a province, lose the Blades and forgo worship of Talos. These factors have made it so that to many within the Empire the war is viewed as a Dominion victory, leading to basically warped perceptives about the Empire, which will give its own set of troubles, like for example the Stormcloak Rebellion. But I think that this kind of position gives too little mind to the Dominion side of things. Yes, I'll admit that the Empire got the bad end of the stick here, and that it lost far more due to the Concordat than the Dominion did due to the war. But I think most people don't really take into account the fact that the Dominion also came out of this war very much wounded. If we take a look at the records from the war, then we see that by the year 174 of the Fourth Era, the Old Merry Dominion threw every last reinforcement it had at the Cyrodiilic campaign, trying to overthrow the Empire completely. It took the Imperial city, yeah, but the Emperor and most of his troops remained out of its reach. And then later at the Battle of the Red Ring, their invasion army gets decimated by the remaining Imperial forces. After Red Ring there was of course the White Gold Concordat, which proved to be a peace treaty only for Cyrodiil, and thus the war ended there, but with the war in Cyrodiil over, their remaining forces were not enough to win the war in Hammerfell for 5 more years. An independent Hammerfell, with no serious aid from the Empire, was able to fight off the Dominion to a standstill and force them to sign a treaty at this point. So this is basically a loss for the Dominion, as long as you keep assuming of course that taking Hammerfell was their priority in the Hammerfell War. Considering how weak the Dominion forces were after nearly all of their available invasion forces were gone, in retrospect some say that the Empire might have actually won the Great War if they pushed into the south of Cyrodiil, and then later into the southern provinces. Although that would bring its own set of problems that might make the scenario of winning impossible, like how southern Cyrodiil was left destroyed, but elsewhere in Valenwood were still well defended. So we're not really discussing that here at the moment, and in addition to that, the Emperor had no idea whether the Dominion still had some sort of ace up their sleeves. So he negotiated the White Gold Concordat in order to end the war and perhaps fight some other day when the Empire would be better prepared. Another thing to mention is that it's also doubtful and unknown whether they would have even been able to win against the Dominion garrisons in southern Cyrodiil. I mean, the invasion force had been defeated, but every city and every fort in southern Cyrodiil was still under garrison from the Old Merry Dominion, and it was still under control. So it was likely far more enticing to just outlaw the worship of Talos and outlaw the Blades if it meant a swift end to the war, and to get Cyrodiil, all of Cyrodiil, back from the Dominion troops, even the south. The Concordat was a win for the Dominion, and it gives the edge to them in being the overall winner of the conflict. But they lost most of their military as well, and in the end didn't even manage to capture Hammerfell, which was their original goal at the beginning of the war, after they were forced to sign the Second Treaty of Strathmacai with Hammerfell. This means that if you look at the broader picture, if you look at who the Thalmor are and what they stand for, and what they likely promise their population, a swift and decisive victory over the inferior humans because they're elven supremacists, then this war must have been an embarrassment of epic proportions for them back home. Yes, they got the disbandment of the Blades and the outlaw of Talos worship, but if you look at the bigger picture, that's just a scrap of what they hope to achieve and what they likely promised their populations that they would achieve during the war, because the beginning objective was basically capture southern Hammerfell, and later their objective became overthrow the Empire and even conquer Cyrodiil. If you look at it from this perspective, the war wouldn't seem so much like a victory from the Dominion side, rather like an embarrassment, and no wonder then that the Thalmor keep insisting that this war is merely the first war against the Empire, as that's basically the way that they will need to frame it in order to keep their population happy and retain their population's belief in the propaganda. Thalmor leadership tries to make what they achieved look like a total victory when confronting the citizens of the Empire, something they can do considering that those citizens are subject to the White Gold Concordat. But I personally wouldn't be surprised if the Dominion has become a lot more wary, perhaps even a bit afraid, as they heavily underestimated the Empire the first time. They know as well as Imperial leadership does that at the beginning of the First War, the Empire was in very bad shape and did not expect a war, thus the Dominion had the element of surprise and threw everything it had against the Empire. Yet, the Empire survived, and it even won against them in a way. Now the Empire is prepared, and as we know from several dialogues in Skyrim, the Empire knows damn well that they need to be prepared now. They know that there's a threat, and they know that the Thalmor are framing the First War, the Great War, as the First War. So it really is no wonder that the Thalmor tried to weaken the Empire by, for example, prolonging the Skyrim Civil War, or trying to get Empire morale down. They are likely quite afraid that they simply won't win if the Empire is not weakened, and thus do everything to undermine both the Empire and its morale. Therefore I suspect that all the boasting from the Thalmor is likely just a way to undermine the Empire's morale. I mean, this also happened a lot in history, where a country will make it seem like it's very strong in order to basically scare off the citizens and to scare off the other country in general. Perhaps the lower Thalmor, like the agents that we see, actually believe in a complete superiority because, of course, there's been propaganda. But I suspect that Thalmor leadership knows damn well that they simply don't have the big ace that they had during the First War. Because in addition to all that we've said before, there's also the information that Elder Scrolls Legends gave us, considering the Altmeri Dominion's army during the Great War. Back then, they made heavy use of the Orb of Vermina to spy on the Empire's forces and presumably get rid of all the Imperial spies. They could see the Empire's army wherever it was. And still, they lost, and they lost the Orb during the First War, due to the actions of the Golden Hero in the Elder Scrolls Legends. And by losing that Orb, they lost a powerful tool that could give them the edge over the Empire. So, because of the signing of the White Gold Concordat, the war definitely looks like a Dominion victory to the citizens of the Empire because they've been subjected to treaty terms. I would definitely say that calling it an all-out victory for the Dominion is not really objective to do, since, yeah, it looks like that from the Empire's perspective. But from the perspective of the Dominion, this might actually look like either a complete embarrassment or, if you put it in like total war terms, a Pyrrhic victory. So, I really hope that this helps clean up some misconceptions. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider returning for the next Elder Scrolls Lore video next Friday. I greatly enjoyed talking about the Great War again in a manner that doesn't just rehash old content. And I really hope that you liked it as well. It's basically where my channel started and where a lot of you jumped on the bandwagon. Before I end this video, allow me to thank my top patrons, Mr. Bernardo Binda, Metaloid1v1, Gabriel Binda, Hammer of the Scots, and Mr. Para. Because of these guys, along with all the others on screen, it is that I'm able to do this weekly lore show. And also, holy shit, we've also already gotten over 500 downloads across all platforms on the Imperial Knowledge Lorebook Collection mod for Skyrim, and thank you so much for that. As promised, the team and I will start working on an Oblivion and Morrowind port for the mod as soon as we have time. If you don't know what I'm talking about with this mod, there's a link to the trailer of the mod in the description. Stay safe everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.